Thank you for visiting my channel. Before we start, hit the subscribe button below so you will be notified of future presentations. This is Negotiable Instruments Law, Act Number 2031, Articles 1 to 9. Most of the discussion here are lifted from my book, The Law on Negotiable Instruments, published in late 2020. The Negotiable Instruments Law provides for three kinds of instruments: promissory notes, bills of exchange, and checks. Negotiation means the transfer of the instrument from one person to another in such a manner as to constitute the transferee the holder thereof. This is based on Section 30 of the law. The principal difference between a negotiable instrument and other documents is this. In case of negotiable instruments, the transferee, in good faith and for value, attains a good title even if the title of the transferor may be defective. However, in the case of other documents, the transferee cannot acquire a better title than that of the transferor. Here is a standard form of promissory note. On the upper left-hand corner, we have the amount, 10,000 pesos. On the upper right-hand corner, we have the place of execution, Manila, Philippines, and the date of execution, June 1, 2020. The note states, for value received, I promise to pay to the order of JDC the sum of 10,000 pesos, Philippine currency, on December 30, 2020 at ABC Bank, Makati. Signed, Pedro Santos. Who are the parties to a promissory note? We have Pedro Santos, the maker, and JDC, the payee. The maker is the debtor and the payee is the creditor. Sa promissory note, nangangako si maker na magbabayad kay payee. Si maker ang promisor at si payee ang promisee. Promissory note is defined under Section 184 of the Negotiable Instruments Law. It says, promissory note defined. A negotiable promissory note within the meaning of this act is an unconditional promise in writing made by one person to another, signed by the maker, engaging to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time a sum certain in money to order or to bearer. Where a note is drawn to the maker's own order, it is not complete until endorsed by him. Here is a standard form of a bill of exchange. On the upper left-hand corner, we have the amount, 10,000 pesos. On the upper right-hand corner, we have the place of execution, Manila, Philippines, and the date of execution, June 1, 2020. It says, 30 days after sight, pay to the order of JDC the sum of 10,000 pesos Philippine currency at ABC Bank, Makati. Signed, Pedro Santos, the drawer. And on the lower left-hand corner, we have the name of the drawee, Carlos Reyes, 123 M. Clara Street, Pasay City. The parties to a bill of exchange are Pedro Santos, the drawer, Carlos Reyes, the drawee or acceptor, and the payee, JDC. In a bill of exchange, the drawer is the debtor and the payee is the creditor. And the drawer, Pedro Santos in our example, is ordering the drawee, Carlos Reyes, to pay the payee, JDC. Actually, the drawee is not a party to the contract until and unless he accepts, in which case he becomes an acceptor under Section 62. We will study this more in detail when we go to the liabilities of parties. A bill of exchange is defined under Section 126. It says, Bill of exchange defined. A bill of exchange is an unconditional order in writing, addressed by one person to another, signed by the person giving it, requiring the person to whom it is addressed to pay on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time a sum certain in money to order or to bearer. Check is defined under Section 185. It says, a check is a bill of exchange drawn on a bank payable on demand. As to the distinctions between a promissory note and a bill of exchange, they are found on pages 22 to 23 of my book, And the distinctions between a bill of exchange and a check are on pages 24 to 25. Section 1. Form of negotiable instruments. An instrument to be negotiable must conform to the following requirements. A. It must be in writing and signed by the maker or drawer. B. Must contain an unconditional promise or order to pay a sum certain in money. C. Must be payable on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time. D. Must be payable to order or to bearer. And E. Where the instrument is addressed to a drawee, he must be named or otherwise indicated therein with reasonable certainty. Isa-isa nating ipaliwanag ang mga requirements sa Section 1. The first requisite of negotiability is that the instrument must be in writing and signed by the maker or drawer. Ang promissory note at ang bill of exchange kasama na ang cheque kasi ang cheque ay isang uri ng bill of exchange, dapat sila ay nakasulat dahil sila ay nagpapalipat-lipat kamay. Ang promissory note dapat may pirma ni maker at ang bill of exchange at ang cheque dapat may pirma ni drawer. The second requirement of negotiability is that the instrument must contain an unconditional promise or order to pay a sum certain in money. A promissory note contains a promise to pay, and a bill of exchange contains an order to pay. The phrase unconditional promise refers to promissory notes, and the phrase unconditional order refers to bills of exchange and checks. The only permissible promise or order in a negotiable instrument is to pay a sum of money, and any other promise or order negates negotiability. Ang pambayad sa negotiable instruments, namely promissory notes, bills of exchange, including checks, ay palaging pera. Hindi siya pwedeng bayaran ng goods or services or any combination thereof, with one little exception under Section 5, Paragraph D, which we will take up later on. The third requisite of negotiability is that the instrument must be payable on demand or at a fixed or determinable future time. Payable on demand means payable immediately upon demand by the payee or holder. Determinable future time may be stated in several ways. There may be a specific date or there may not be a specific date indicated. For example, here's a promissory note which says, I promise to pay to the order of JDC 10,000 on Christmas Day of this year. So Christmas Day is a determinable future time. The fourth requisite of negotiability is the instrument must be payable to order or to bearer. Every negotiable instrument must be payable to order or to bearer. These are the words of negotiability. An instrument payable to order is one that will be paid to the order of a particular person or organization. An instrument payable to bearer is payable to whoever is in possession thereof. The fifth and last requisite of negotiability is, where the instrument is addressed to a drawee, he must be named or otherwise indicated therein with reasonable certainty. Requisites A to D pertain to promissory notes and bills of exchange, including checks, but requisite E pertains only to a bill of exchange because it talks about drawee and there is no drawee in a promissory note. Drawee is found only in bills of exchange. Ibig sabihin, dapat pangalanan si drawee. In our example, our drawee is Carlos Reyes, residing at numbers 123 M. Clara Street, Pasay City. Pero kung walang proper name na nakalagay, pwede naman yung designation niya para makilala siya. Halimbawa, nakalagay sa drawee ay the current mayor of Manila or the secretary of DPWH. So, by their designation, makikilala natin kung sino yung drawee. Section 2. What constitutes certainty as to sum? The sum payable is a sum certain within the meaning of this act, although it is to be paid A, with interest, or B, by stated installments, or C, by stated installments with a provision that, upon default in payment of any installment or of interest, the whole shall become due, or D, with exchange whether at a fixed rate or at the current rate, or E, with costs of collection or an attorney's fee in case payment shall not be made at maturity. Etong Section 2, this is an explanation of Section 1, Paragraph B, which says that a negotiable instrument must contain an unconditional promise or order to pay a sum certain in money. So this is the explanation of what a sum certain in money means. Ibig sabihin, the promissory note or bill of exchange is still negotiable even if there is a stipulation as to the payment of interest in case of default, or it is payable by installments, or there is an acceleration clause in case of failure to pay on time. Its negotiability is also not affected even if it is payable in foreign currency, or if there is a stipulation as to the payment of cost of collection or attorney's fees in case payment is not made at maturity. As to the payment of interest, if the rate of interest is fixed by the instrument itself, the exact sum which will be due at maturity can be calculated by anyone at any time. If interest is due but the specific rate is not stated in the instrument, the current legal rate applies. If payment is to be made by installments, the number of installments and the maturity date of each installment must be stated. Otherwise, the bill would not be negotiable because the sum payable would not be certain or ascertainable in money in violation of Section 1, Paragraph B. Section 3. When promise is unconditional. An unqualified order or promise to pay is unconditional within the meaning of this act, though coupled with A, an indication of a particular fund out of which reimbursement is to be made, or a particular account to be debited with the amount, or B, a statement of the transaction which gives rise to the instrument. But an order or promise to pay out of a particular fund is not unconditional. A promise or order to pay is conditional if reference to a particular fund clearly indicates an intention that such fund should be the direct source of payment. There are two illustrations in this slide. One is a conditional order to pay, and the other one is an unconditional order to pay. The conditional order is non-negotiable, and the unconditional is negotiable. The conditional order to pay says, pay to the order of Juan de la Cruz 10,000 on December 30, 2022 from my money in your hands. Signed, Pedro Santos, drawer. Here, the source of payment is my money in your hands. In the first example, the order is conditional and therefore non-negotiable for the reason that the order to pay is dependent on the existence and sufficiency of the fund indicated. Here, the fund indicated, my money in your hands, is the direct source of payment. The unconditional order to pay says, pay to the order of Juan de la Cruz 10,000 on December 30, 2022 and reimburse yourself from my money in your hands. Signed, Pedro Santos, drawer. Here, the fund indicated, which is my money in your hands, is not the direct source of payment, but only the source of reimbursement. In the second example, the order is unconditional and therefore negotiable because the order to pay is not dependent on the existence and sufficiency of the fund indicated. Payment is ordered regardless of whether the fund out of which reimbursement is to be made exists or is insufficient. Here, the fund indicated, my money in your hands, is not the source of payment but only of reimbursement. Section 4, Determinable future time, what constitutes? An instrument is payable at a determinable future time within the meaning of this act, which is expressed to be payable A, at a fixed period after date or site, or B, on or before a fixed or determinable future time specified therein, or C, on or at a fixed period after the occurrence of a specified event which is certain to happen, though the time of happening be uncertain. An instrument payable upon a contingency is not negotiable, and the happening of the event does not cure the defect. Based on Section 4, the following are determinable future time. 1. 30 days after date or 30 days after sight. 2. On or before December 30, 2022. And 3. 30 days after the death of JDC's grandfather. Section 5. Additional provisions not affecting negotiability. An instrument which contains an order or promise to do any act in addition to the payment of money is not negotiable. But the negotiable character of an instrument, otherwise negotiable, is not affected by a provision which A. Authorizes the sale of collateral securities in case the instrument be not paid at maturity, or B. Authorizes a confession of judgment if the instrument be not paid at maturity, or C. Waives the benefit of any law intended for the advantage or protection of the obligor, or D. Gives the holder an election to require something to be done in lieu of payment of money. But nothing in this section shall validate any provision or stipulation otherwise illegal. Paragraphs A to C are sufficiently discussed in my book, but in this presentation, I'd like to give a little discussion on paragraph D. When we were discussing Section 1, Paragraph B, we said that the only permissible promise or order in a negotiable instrument is to pay a sum certain in money. However, there is one little exception to that rule found under Section 5, last paragraph. It says, the negotiable character of an instrument otherwise negotiable is not affected by a provision which gives the holder an election to require something to be done in lieu of payment of money. In other words, if the choice is given to the payee or holder, an instrument is negotiable even if it requires something to be done in lieu of payment of money. Here is an example of a promissory note that gives the holder the choice to require something to be done in lieu of payment of money. It says, I promise to pay to the order of JDC 10,000 or deliver to him my prize-winning dog at his election. This is a negotiable promissory note. Section 6. Omissions, seal, particular money. The validity and negotiable character of an instrument are not affected by the fact that A. It is not dated, or B. Does not specify the value given, or that any value had been given therefore, or C. Does not specify the place where it is drawn or the place where it is payable, or D. Bears a seal, or E. Designates a particular kind of current money in which payment is to be made. But nothing in this section shall alter or repeal any statute requiring in certain cases the nature of the consideration to be stated in the instrument. Here is an example of a promissory note pursuant to Section 6. It is not dated. It does not specify the value given or that any value had been given therefore. It does not specify the place where it is drawn or the place where it is payable. And it designates a foreign currency in which payment is to be made. And yet it is negotiable because it complies with the requisites under Section 1. Here is an example of a bill of exchange pursuant to Section 6. It is not dated. It does not specify the value given or that any value had been given therefore. It does not specify the place where it is drawn or the place where it is payable. And it designates a foreign currency in which payment is to be made. And yet it is negotiable because it complies with the requisites of Section 1 of the law. Section 7. When payable on demand. An instrument is payable on demand. A. When it is so expressed to be payable on demand, or at sight, or on presentation, or B. In which no time for payment is expressed. Where an instrument is issued, accepted, or endorsed when overdue, it is as regards the person so issuing, accepting, or endorsing it, payable on demand. Based on Section 7, the following are examples of promissory notes payable on demand. 1. I promise to pay to the order of P 10,000 on demand. 2. I promise to pay to the order of P 10,000 at sight. 3. I promise to pay to the order of P 10,000 on presentation. And 4. I promise to pay to the order of P 10,000. Section 8. When payable to order. The instrument is payable to order where it is drawn payable to the order of a specified person or to him or his order. It may be drawn payable to the order of A payee who is not maker, drawer, or drawee, or B, the drawer or maker, or C, the drawee, or D, two or more payees jointly, or E, one or some of several payees, or F, the holder of an office for the time being. Where the instrument is payable to order, the payee must be named or otherwise indicated therein with reasonable certainty. Based on Section 8, here are examples of negotiable instruments payable to order. 1. I promise to pay to payee or order 10,000. 2. I promise to pay maker or order 10,000. 3. Pay to drawer or order 10,000. 4. Pay to drawee or order 10,000. 5. Pay to A and B or order 10,000. 6. Pay to A or B or order 10,000. And 7th, pay to the order of the current mayor of Manila 10,000. Section 9. When payable to bearer. The instrument is payable to bearer, A, when it is expressed to be so payable, or B, when it is payable to a person named therein or bearer, or C, when it is payable to the order of a fictitious or non-existing person, and such fact was known to the person making it so payable, or D, when the name of the payer does not purport to be the name of any person, or E, when the only or last endorsement is an endorsement in blank. Based on Section 9, the following bills of exchange are payable to bearer. 1. Pay to bearer. 2. Pay to the order of bearer. 3. Pay to blank. 4. Pay to cash. 5. Pay to the order of cash. 6. Pay to the order of P or bearer. 7. Pay to the order of white lady. And 8. Pay to XYZ. As to the last paragraph of Section 9, which says, when the only or last endorsement is an endorsement in blank, this is a situation where an instrument originally payable to order becomes payable to bearer. There is a separate discussion on this, the link to which is provided below. If you find this presentation helpful, please hit the subscribe button below to get notification of future lectures. Please comment below as to your thoughts, observations, and suggestions on the subject. Thank you.